Okay, boys and girls, here we are at problem number 1 in lesson 4-3 of Mxl problem solving. So I'm going to take you through these 6 problems, and this is our lesson for the day. Okay, let's take a look at what we are faced here with. It says the scatter plot shows the number of people at the fair based on the outside temperature. How many fewer people would be predicted to be at the fair on a 100-degree Fahrenheit day than a 75-degree day? Okay, now here's the graph. Do you see it? So what we want to do is we want to compare how many people are likely to come on a 75-degree day and a 100-degree day. And to do that, we have to find the slope. Do you see that? The slope. So to do that, if you remember, the way we do it is we pick 2 points right on the trend line. It's going to be kind of hard to see which actual points the line goes through, and there's no table of values. So we're just going to take it visually from the graph. I'm going to take this point right here, and I'm going to take this point right here. Okay? And the coordinates are, let me shrink my pen down a little bit. The coordinates of those points are, well, you can see that that's the x value, that's the y value. So we're at 50 and 10. That's not a very good 0 there. There. And for the other point, you can see that we're right there for x, and we have to go all the way across to the y value, and so that's at 100 and then 2. Now the way to solve for the slope is to take y minus y and divide by x minus x. If you remember, this is the rise and this is the run. Do you remember that? So I'm going to come over on the left-hand side and do this. We're going to take 10 minus 2 and divide by 100 minus 50. And that's 8. Oops. Nope, hang on. You may have caught my mistake already, boys and girls. If I take 10 minus 2, then I have to take 50 minus 100. I have to use the same order. So 10 minus 2 and 50 minus 100. So that's 8 over negative 50. Okay, take a minute to calculate that on a calculator. Go ahead and pause the video to do it. And what you'll find is that the slope, that simplified fraction actually becomes a decimal, and the slope is going to equal negative 0.16. So that answer is going to go right in that box. Next up, we have several additional questions. First of all, we already answered that the slope is negative 0.16. And that means that if we go back to the graph, that means that for every a temperature, 1 degree rise in temperature, as the temperature goes up, the number of people is decreasing. You can see that the trend line is clearly negative. So the slope means that for every temperature degree increase, 0.16 thousand people, 0.16, see it's in thousands, 0.16 thousand people fewer are going to come to the fair. So if we come back here, we can see this question says, for each degree that the outside temperature increases, the fair attendance decreases by, and there's where our answer goes. The slope goes there. We don't have to put negative because we already have this word right here is decreasing, so that's taking care of our negative value. Okay, so if I make this a different color, like red, that was our answer right there. So next question is very simple. It says the difference between 75 degrees Fahrenheit and 100 degrees is, and we put our answer there. That's very simple. All you need to do is subtract 100 minus 75. Now, since for each degree, the number of people goes down by 0.16 thousand, that means that if there's a -1 degree difference, we're going to multiply that by 0.16. If there's a positive 1 degree difference, we're going to multiply that by negative 0.16, okay? So, but if there's a positive 25 degree difference, then we're going to still multiply that by negative 0.16, and when we do that, we get that our answer is -4. Good, let's move on. And the final question is here. That means about how many thousand fewer people are predicted to be at the fair on a 100-degree day than a 75-degree day? Well, look here. We said that for a 25-degree difference, that we're going to expect -4 drop on the y-axis. And remember, the y-axis is in thousands of people. So if the answer is -4, that means 4,000 fewer people. 4,000. Good. Okay, next question. The scatter plot shows a hiker's elevation above sea level during a hike from base camp to the top of a mountain. The equation for a trend line is right here. Here's the equation, where x represents the number of minutes and y represents the hiker's elevation, okay? So here we are at the number of minutes on the x-axis and the elevation on the y-axis. Use the equation of the trend line to estimate the hiker's elevation after 150 minutes, okay? So that means that we're going to take the equation, y equals 9.62x plus 628, and instead of x, we are going to put our value of 150. That's x. So 150 goes there, and then we're going to add 628. Now let's take a moment to calculate that. And when we're done, since our equation is set up for y, that means that our elevation on the y-axis will be given once we calculate this at x equals 150. So pause the recording right now and calculate that. And you can see that our answer is y equals 2,071. 2,071 what? Feet, right? And that answer will go in the blank right there. So go ahead and fill that in. Okay, boys and girls, this is problem 3, and it says that the graph shows the number of gallons of water in a large tank. It's being filled. Based on the trend line, predict, that's what we're working on today, how long it will take to fill the tank with 455 gallons of water. Okay, well, let's pick a couple of points on the graph to use to calculate our slope first. I kind of like this one at the y-intercept, and then we can take the very first one that crosses right there. So let's figure out the coordinates. Right here on the y-axis, the coordinates are 0, and it looks like we're counting by 30 every line. Go ahead and pause the video to see why that's true, if you need to. And for our second point, it looks like we are at x value of 6 and y value of 180. So if I do 180 minus 30, that's y minus y, and I do 6 minus 0, then that's going to be 150 over 6, which equals 25. That's my slope. 25 is the slope. So that means that, and it's positive, right? That means that the tank is filling at 25 gallons, right? 25 of these things on the y-axis, going up 25 for every 1 minute of time that goes by. So here's where we are. We are starting with 30 gallons in the tank. Can you see that? 0, 30. That's what we just said. At time 0, the tank already has 30 gallons in it. And we need to get to 455. So if I take 455 and subtract 30, that is 425. So how many minutes is it going to take me at 25 gallons per minute, remember this, to equal 425? In other words, divide 425 by 25. And you will see that when you do that, 425 divided by 25 equals, take a minute to do that, pause the recording if you need to, that is 17 minutes. Good. Moving on. Okay, let's see where we are. Here we are. Problem 4 says the graph shows the temperature Y in a freezer X minutes after it was turned on. 5 minutes after being turned on, the temperature was actually 2 degrees from what the trend line shows. Okay, so let's stop there and let's find our point at 5 minutes, which is right there, right? That's at X equals 5, right? And Y equals 15, right? So that point is 5 minutes at 15 degrees, right? Okay, so but it says that the temperature was actually 2 degrees from what the trend line shows. So that means this number plus or minus, because we don't know if it doesn't say more or less, plus or minus 2 degrees. We don't know if it's more, we don't know if it's less. So which answer choices show 15 plus 2 and 15 minus 2? That would be this one. Hang on. That would be this one, 13 degrees, and of course 17 degrees. There you go. Moving on, problem 5. We're going to think about the process here. We have a picture over here. Let me make that a little skinnier. We have a picture right here. Okay, and some writing. Let's see what it says. Why is a data point with an x-coordinate of 0 a good point to use when creating a trend line for a data set? Okay, so why, in other words, do we want to start right here on the y-axis when we start drawing our trend line? Right there. What? Right there. The graph shows the altitude of a weather balloon. The trend line passes through the points 0, 499. That's the one I just showed you. And 10, 411. That would be this point down here. Dang it, that's not where it is. It's right there. I'm having a hard time hitting that point. Hang on. It is right there. Okay. Write an equation for the trend line for the data shown in the graph. After how many minutes is the balloon at an altitude of 437.4 feet above sea level? Okay. First of all, start with the question. Why is a data point with x-coordinate of 0 a good point to use when creating a trend line for a data set? It's because the y-coordinate of this point is the y-intercept, and it's easy to find, and it's also easy to compute the slope using this point because you have a 0 in the coordinate. Pause the video and rewind that to understand it if you need to. Moving on to the next part of the problem, it's actually super simple because, remember, this point right here, remember that point on the y-axis? What are the coordinates? Do you remember? The coordinates there are 0, 499. Oops. Let me see if I can fit that in a little better. 0, 499. Just like it says right here. So, look at these equation choices. Which ones have a positive y-intercept of 499? It's this one and this one. So right away, B and D are out. And then also notice that the trend line is negative. So which one of the answer choices, A or C, shows a negative slope? It is clearly C. So we didn't even have to really work out the math on this one. We just needed to notice that the trend line was negative and the y-intercept was positive. Last problem, boys and girls, another think about the process. Again, it's a similar question. we have a graph and similar types of questions as the last problem. Here's our graph right here. So we're going to try and take this point right here on the y-axis. Let me try and hit that a little better. Close. Right there. And that's at point, what are the coordinates? 0, 458. And then it goes to this point 10, 540. Let me see if I can hit that accurately. Right. Nope. Right there. Pretty close. Okay. Write an equation for the trend line. Well, first of all, we have the same question down below. Why is a data point with an x-coordinate of 0 a good place to start? Well, it's because it is easy to compute, and the y-coordinate is the y-intercept, just like the same answers as last time. And we're going to notice that our y-intercept is positive, and our trend line is also positive. So which ones of these show positive 458 for the y-intercept? That would be this one and this one. So that means C and D are out. And then which one shows a positive slope? It's clearly answer choice B. There you have it, boys and girls. Good luck.